Cuyahoga County Public Works Procurement and Contracting Committee meeting for Wednesday, May the 31st. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. 2023 will be called to order. Roll call.
As a reminder to all in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll for Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Present.
Ms. Turner.
Present.
Mr. Sweeney.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Okay, Madam Clerk, is there any public comment this morning?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed in for public comment.
Okay, and could I have approval of minutes from the May 17th, 2023 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. And Madam Clerk, if we could have the first matter referred to committee?
Resolution 2023-0141, awarding a total sum not to exceed $150,000 to the Village of Brooklyn Heights for the purpose of upgrading and repairing elevators in the Brooklyn Heights Municipal Building and Community Center from the District 8 ARPA Community Grant Fund.
Okay, and who do we have to speak on behalf of that legislation? Okay, if you could just come up and please state your name for the record.
Microphone on?
Oh, yeah, I think the on button should be a green light.
Oh, light should be on.
There we go,
Got it. Better?
Okay, yeah, if you could just.
No
just start from
problem.
scratch.
Name is Aaron Frank. I'm the clerk treasurer for the Village of Brooklyn Heights.
I'm Joe Blados, the Service Director for the Village of Brooklyn Heights.
All right,
And,
welcome.
on behalf of our mayor, our council, the village residents, and anybody else in Brooklyn Heights, we're very appreciative of this moment right now.
Okay, and what's the purpose of the legislation here, the purpose for the ARPA funding?
Sure. So we budgeted, in this past budget season to repair/replace 2 elevators in our village, one being in the municipal center and one being in our community center. There's 2 levels. Does the municipal center goes to the basement? So technically 3 levels in the municipal center, 2 levels in the community center. And they're old. So we budgeted for it this year, and our mayor, Mike Prosek, had approached, the contact here at Cuyahoga County and to see if there was additional funding. So here we are today.
Okay. Questions from my colleagues?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
What is the total project cost to repair the 2 elevators?
Sure, Mr. Miller. The total cost is not to exceed $325,000.
And,
Going to take care of both elevators.
and where is the remainder of the funds coming from?
So we had budgeted to do this project on behalf of, on village accounts, and then therefore the remainder of the money is coming from our capital fund.
And how long will it take to do the work?
We're in the process now, paperwork signed. We're with Otis. They, as we've used them in the past. So as stuff comes in and the process goes forward, they're looking at early 2024 for completion.
Legislation is all passed. Council's approved everything on our side, so it's just a waiting game now on when the company's able to.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Conwell, anything? Okay, I think you asked everything. Okay, with these ARPA funds, the way county council has been handling is to move these, do full 3 readings on these. So with that, if there are no objections, I'll make a motion for moving R 2023-0141 on for second reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. I appreciate it. Thanks and good luck to you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it very much.
All right, absolutely.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, the next resolution.
Resolution 2023-0147, authorizing amendments to various revenue-generating agreements with various providers that lease space at various adult activity centers for the period January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2022, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2025, to change the terms effective January 1st, 2023 with SAW Incorporated and with Vocational Guidance Services.
Okay, and if you could state your name for the record. Okay. Okay, and what's the purpose of this legislation here?
We are seeking to renew the leases for 5 of our buildings with 2 providers that have been providing day services in those locations since we ceased private operations in 2020.
Okay, and what are the major changes, if any?
There's very little change. There's some increase in square footage by building for 4 of them, and we have increased the rent by $2 a square foot during the renewal term.
Okay, and what is the total rent going to be then?
It's just under $2.5 million for all 5 buildings from both providers.
Okay, and let's see here. When does the lease start?
It started January 1st.
January 1st. And why is it coming so late before us?
We submitted it to the county back in November or early December. I'm not quite sure why it took so long to come to you.
Okay. And then this has to be approved by the board itself, or has it been?
Our board has approved it.
Has already approved it, okay. Let's see. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Ms. Conwell?
Through the chair to Ms. Gibbs, since it hasn't been approved since January, have the payments, have they been able to be paid? And were they paid under the new lease agreement?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, as always. And we're excited about a new chapter in your professional life. It's looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Did anybody whine about the extra $2?
No. They were very, very understanding of it. It's close to market rate. It's not exactly market rate, but because they serve people with developmental disabilities and it's such a needed service in our community, they were agreeable.
And I apologize for using the word whine. It should have been fussy.
I understood.
Okay, thank you. They were just, through the chair, they were just realizing that they had it pretty good before, and now this is just equaling it out.
Yes.
Cool. The partnership continues. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Conwell?
Just a question to you, Mr. Chair. Just wondering how the agreements were paid for and they were not passed.
How the agreements?
Yeah. Ms. Gibbs stated that they,
Oh,
All and VGS pay us directly for them, for the
Okay.
rent.
okay.
That's how.
all right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Miller?
what's the rental amount per square foot?
$12 a square foot.
Is it the same for all of them?
Yes.
It is, okay. And it's gone on long enough. I would be for second reading suspension if others agree with that.
Okay. One other question I had is, these particular locations, how were they selected as far as continuing leases with these specific areas?
So when we privatized our services back in 2020, we had 8 locations throughout Cuyahoga County. 3 of those locations have since been closed just because of lack of people coming back post-pandemic, and because some of those locations duplicated or were close enough to these locations. So for example, we have one in Brooklyn that we have closed that's very close to the Southwest Center. So it was determined that these spread out throughout the county and that these served a sufficient number of people.
Okay. Appreciate that. Sure. Okay, Mr. Miller, I believe you had a motion to move this on for second reading suspension.
I will move to favorably recommend 2023-0147 with a recommendation to leadership to put it on the agenda for second reading suspension.
Okay, and I'll second that motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, Madam Clerk, next resolution?
Resolution 2023-0148, making an award on requisition 11827 to United Survey Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $3,299,484 for 2023 sewer rehabilitation program in various county sewer districts for the period June 1st, 2023 through June 1st, 2026.
Okay, and if you could just state your name for the record.
Nicole English with Public Works. So this is a construction award for our sewer rehab program. It is called 2023 because it's bid in 2023. However, the length of the contract is 3 years. Most of the monies will be spent in year 1, year 2, and the third year is just there to finish up billing and project construction closeout. We put out a formal bid. Only one respondent came in. And it was 5.7% under the engineer's estimate. The engineer's estimate was 3.5. We're just under $3.3 million. They initially were scored as non-compliant by DEI. However, they are meeting 20% SBE and 7% WBE. And so they appealed the decision to the Cuyahoga County Administrative Reconsideration Panel, and they issued a granting of their appeal letter on March 30th. So the appeal was granted by the panel, and so we are proceeding with this award of the contract.
Okay, so just if you could, in general here, as far as this appeals process, how does that work? What do they look at in terms of whether or not they'll be granted?
So we're not
favor?
included in the process, so I'm not sure exactly what they're looking at, but I believe they look at the good faith effort that was included in the bid, and then they agreed that the contractor did make a good faith effort to hit the goals. And so that's where they granted their appeal. The goals were set of the contract at 3% SBE, 20 MBE, and 17 WBE. And so the contractor's meeting 20% SBE, 7 WBE, and no MBE. So they explained why they did not find vendors that were registered MBEs that can do this type of work. It is a specialized type of work. I mean, it's just rehab of the sewers. So we're trying to work closer with DEI on really drilling down on the type of work for these contracts so that they're using appropriate codes that aren't so general that they list so many vendors that are eligible when really in reality, and you look at the type of work being done, it's a much smaller group of vendors that can do the work. So we've seen this happen a few times recently. So we've had meetings with Director Lockett and her staff on, ways to kind of fine tune, the program and what's happening so that we aren't seeing so many of the non-compliant and them needing to appeal. But what happens is when they're non-compliant, we send a notification to the vendor that says you're not compliant with DEI. You have the right to appeal the decision to this panel, and then they choose if they do or not. These vendors, they did choose to go to submit a letter to the panel, and they went and then got the response from them. So that's kind of the process.
Okay, and I see that the time frame here is for June 1st?
Yeah, that seems unrealistic, but so I guess second reading suspension. We do have a current contract that I believe is expired. And this is one of the services we use for all the communities that have sewer agreements with us, and it gets billed back to the community. So we would hate to be without the services, but obviously June 1st is tomorrow. That's not going to work. So second reading suspension, if possible, would get us closer to that date.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Miller?
Yes, I have a question. So, when would the work begin under this contract?
So if it gets approved next week, it's been taking us about a week to get resolutions back and a signed contract shortly after that. So I'd say within about 2 weeks, they could start.
And why do you think we only got one bid on this contract?
It's fairly specialized. We do this every year, and the most we see is 2 vendors that normally submit. It's just a pretty small market, and people are busy right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to move this on for second reading suspension. R 2023-0148 for second reading suspension. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move R 2023-0148 on for second reading suspension. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the ayes have it. Okay. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, if you could need the next resolution.
Resolution 2023-0149, making an award on requisition 11971 to K2M Design Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $1,200,000 for general architectural engineering services for the Cuyahoga County Justice Center, effective upon signature of all parties for a period of 4 years.
Nicole,
Okay.
sorry, Nicole English again with Public Works. So this is a consultant contract that we're awarding. We issued an RFQ. 4 vendors had responded, and we scored them with a selection committee made up of Public Works technical experts. K2M did score the highest. They scored 85 out of the 100 points. The next highest vendor was 73 points, so they were significantly above the next vendor. There is diversity goals that were set by DEI, and they are committed to meeting them. This project is mainly to handle any kind of projects that we might need in the current Justice Center facility between now and the time that something would change or occupancy would change in those facilities. We know there is still some ongoing work that would have to take place even if we move forward on plans for the future of the Justice Center. So the idea is to have this under contract. It's a not to exceed amount. It'll be tasked out on a task by task basis, so it's not a guaranteed 1.2 million. This is just kind of in capturing what we think could be the total needed throughout the life of this contract, which is a 4-year contract for right now. Happy to answer any questions. And I have Matt Reimer with me in case we have specifics on the type of work.
Yeah, so if you could just explain a little bit more in detail. So this covers the current situation at the Justice Center, correct?
Hi, Mr. Chair. Matt Reimer, Facilities Administrator for the Department of Public Works. Yes, so it's important to note that while planning for the Justice Facility's future will continue, that the current facility needs certain investments over probably the next 5-year time horizon, just as an assumption. So we maintain a number of architectural engineering consultant task order contracts like this. We felt it important that we had one dedicated to the Justice Center existing facility so that we can maintain a focus on only the investments that are needed with a backdrop of understanding the planning as it moves forward, so that we're recommending to you only those investments that are needed to continue operations and meet the needs of the current facility for the life that we have it for.
So I can appreciate that, but I don't think this committee has any information about what type of work will actually be performed.
Sure.
What's expected to be done there?
So yes, we had taken a look near the change of administration at the type of work that might be envisioned. If we looked at a 5-year planning horizon, some of the documented work that we know that we will have to address are water intrusion repairs to the main atrium glass roof structure, high voltage switchgear reconfiguration and repairs to our 47-year-old switchgear. These are all consistent with previous briefings I've given to various council committees in the past year. Some small, when I say small, I mean there are various roof sections on the jail structures and in the Justice Center complex that occupy different cutouts of the architectural structure, and those need replacement or repair due to active leaks. We have a documented Tower 2, which is the former police building, elevator banks. Those need to be modernized likely. As again briefed in other forums, we have sanitary sewer risers and lateral lines that are 47-year-old cast iron that are failing, and we need to conduct targeted replacements and repairs to those. And a good example is something that the Board of Control entertained and approved for us yesterday, our ongoing facade ordinance program, compliance with that. So we awarded a $469,000 contract yesterday for granite repairs to the Courts Tower and Jail 1 facade, and that's the exact kind of project that this contract will provide design services for. The things that need to happen now to maintain compliance, maintain public safety, and maintain operations.
So does this contract cover the entire complex, or is it just the court tower, the jail? What does it cover?
The entire complex,
The entire
which
complex.
constitutes the 4 main structures and the atrium structure in between and the associated utility.
And do we currently have a vendor under contract for general architectural services?
As mentioned, we maintain several architect engineering services contracts that are used throughout the county to help execute our capital improvement plan. As mentioned, we felt it important to have a dedicated consultant just for the Justice Center complex so that we can navigate ongoing planning as it moves forward and recommending the right investments to this existing complex.
So let me ask you, how did you guys come up with that assessment as opposed to going with, say, like something shorter than a 4-year contract, or coming to this body piecemeal for for issues that arise.
So for design services, drawing a distinction from the actual projects, each project will, of course, come to the appropriate body for whether it be council or Board of Control if those projects move forward. But for designs, we need to have certain information to execute the designs for these projects, to do the assessments that'll lead us to those designs. And so that this consultant contract would do that specific to the Justice Center, not to be distracted by anything happening in other areas that we have capital improvement planning for, like HHS or Board of Elections or anywhere else. This would be focused just on the Justice Center complex.
So is there an out in this contract for the vendor in the event, say, an agreement is reached with the executive and this, county council with respect to doing something with that building, demolishing it, what have you?
Right.
Is there a way out?
Right. As Ms. English mentioned, this is a not-to-exceed contract, so the consultant firm is only going to be performing tasks that we award through a task order, and those are incrementally given out based on need.
And I guess just related to your question about why not come each time, this one closed February 27th, and, we're here now, so it took that long to score, select, get the contract done, get it to council. And so the idea was kind of getting them under contract so they're ready to go as things come up. But like Matt mentioned, it's only on a task-by-task basis. We don't have to use it all. There doesn't have to be an out. I mean, they're not guaranteed the 1.2 million. So at any time, if we say we're done, we don't need any more work, the contract just can be done and closed out. There's no issue there.
All right, questions? Ms. Conwell?
Where are the funds coming from? Where's this 1.2 coming out of?
All identified as general fund.
Okay.
For this
in Public Works Department?
For this year's appropriation, it's our capital subsidy, yes.
Okay, and just wondering how we will know if there's any balance or anything left from the 1.2. Matt referred to that we may not use this at all. So how would we know if we use this or not?
For all of these contracts, we maintain a tracking spreadsheet which tracks the cost of the individual task orders against the contract balance, and we can provide that on a regular basis to council staff.
I just recommend that to be sent to this committee, so we can keep track if this funding is being utilized or going to be utilized in any way.
Okay, appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Sweeney, did you have something?
Through the chair, we put the 53 million or whatever dollars amount in the jail fund. This is 1.2 out of the general fund. General fund dollars are just, the ARPA dollars are general fund. We took the general fund and just put it over there. Thoughts about swapping or even think about taking it that, because the majority of the work could be done if we focus on the jail in regards to the repairs, because we know there's significant amount of work that would be happening there.
Yeah, I think the design funds for right now, we put in general fund, but the anticipation is the projects that come out of this, the construction costs, may be that 53 million fund would be requested. So as the projects come up, like Matt said, they'll come to Board of Control or Council to be approved. And so at that point, we'll identify different, if there is other funding source we should be using.
Good, and just through the chair, just my thought, because we have the greatest finance chair in the world, and making sure that the general fund is as flush as as full as possible, leaving the 1.2 there, and there's a dedicated stream for the jail, but I think jail and Justice Center are one and the same, so I think it would be an eligible expense.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
point to ponder as it moves through the legislative process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, so what type of time frame are we looking here? I see the contract terms.
It would be, second reading suspension would be helpful just to get started. I know there is a couple things that we want them to start looking at, so if possible.
Right, okay. We'll do, I'll make a motion on R 2023-0149 for second reading suspension. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for second reading suspension. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, is any miscellaneous business before the committee this morning? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a motion, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay, ayes have it. And Public Works will adjourn at 10.